Brought this from New York. What on earth?
It happened last night.
Who?
Don Rickles.
I did not see the
Don
show
Rickles
last
did it last night. He's taping across the hall.
My next guest is truly what?
First guest.
What did I say?
Next guest.
And you corrected me in front of millions of people, didn't you?
For over 30 years, Johnny Carson welcomed Hollywood's biggest stars into America's living rooms. On camera, everyone smiled. Off camera, some guests left scars. Carson interviewed more than 22,000 celebrities, and he remembered everything: the kindness, the egos, and the monsters hiding behind charm. Tonight, we open the side of Hollywood Johnny Carson never talked about on air. These weren't rumors. These were the guests he dreaded, regretted, and in some cases, never invited back. Number 1, Frank Sinatra. The mob mood, the fragile ego. Frank Sinatra didn't walk into The Tonight Show. He arrived. Entourages, demands, tension in the room. Carson later admitted Sinatra required total control. Questions had to be pre-approved. Jokes were dangerous. Even lighting was a battlefield. One wrong comment could trigger a cold, threatening stare. Not anger, something worse. But what truly bothered Carson wasn't Sinatra's ego. It was how he treated the crew. Stagehands were yelled at. Assistants humiliated. No apologies. No respect. Johnny played nice for the audience. But privately, he said Sinatra turned the studio into a place of fear. Talent didn't excuse cruelty. Number 2, Jerry Lewis. Comedy without kindness. Jerry Lewis was hailed as a comic genius. Behind the scenes, he ruled through intimidation. Carson described Lewis as impossible to relax around. Everything had to revolve around Jerry. He interrupted interviews, corrected Johnny on air, treated staff like disposable props. Worst of all, Lewis demanded admiration, not collaboration. Johnny later said the laughter stopped the moment cameras turned off. What remained was ego, insecurity, and control. Comedy, Carson believed, should never humiliate others to survive. Chapter 3, Milton Berle. Milton Berle wasn't just a guest, he was a force of nature. Known as Mr. Television, Berle practically invented the art of being the center of attention. Every appearance on Johnny Carson's stage felt like a personal performance, a showcase of his dominance. Even when he wasn't hosting, Berle wanted the spotlight, and he had a unique, almost predatory way of taking it. Johnny Carson, a master of timing and nuance, noticed an alarming pattern. Young comedians would share new material in private, hoping to impress or earn subtle guidance. Berle had an uncanny ability to listen intently, absorb every word, and then reintroduce the same jokes as his own during the broadcast. The comics, blindsided, were left bewildered, embarrassed, and sometimes humiliated in front of millions. It wasn't malicious in the traditional sense. It was survival, ambition, and hunger wrapped together in a persona that radiated energy and intimidation. But it wasn't only jokes that Berle dominated. He interrupted other guests mid-sentence, hijacked punchlines, and even talked over Johnny himself, as if the host were merely a prop in his performance. Entire tapings could feel like a chess game, with Berle strategically placing himself at the center. Crew members quickly learned, do not challenge him, not with words, not with body language. Yet Carson never called Berle cruel outright. He wasn't cruel, he admitted. He was desperate, and desperation, Johnny knew, could cloud judgment, warp morals, and destroy trust. In Hollywood, talent might earn respect, but desperation could poison relationships, leaving a trail of frustrated, embarrassed, and exhausted people. Berle was proof that even legends carried shadows, hungry, restless shadows that could swallow the laughter of everyone around them. By the end of his life, Berle remained a legend, yet Carson's memories paint a cautionary tale. Charm and genius can mask a consuming hunger, one that leaves collateral damage behind, often unseen by the audience that applauds. Chapter 4, Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds had it all. Looks, charisma, confidence, and a following that adored him. Women swooned, men admired, and Hollywood practically rolled out the red carpet wherever he went. But Johnny Carson, seasoned and observant, could see beneath the dazzling smile. Behind the swagger was a man who wielded charm like a weapon, and sometimes it struck harder than a punch. On camera, Reynolds could light up the stage effortlessly. Off camera, his charm became aggressive, flirtatious to the point of discomfort, and occasionally cruel. He often made jokes at the expense of women and junior staff, eliciting laughter from the audience while leaving those behind the scenes tense or humiliated. Carson noticed that Reynolds rarely engaged women as equals. Instead, he spoke about them, reducing them to objects of amusement or spectacle. The laughter was often hollow, masking tension and fear. Reynolds' obsession with his public image was another layer of complexity. A minor joke about his age, hairline, or physique could trigger outbursts. Carson observed a fascinating pattern. The more confidence Reynolds exuded publicly, the deeper the insecurity lay beneath. Every smile was a calculated performance, every laugh a shield to protect the fragile ego beneath. Behind the studio lights, behind the applause, Reynolds' darker edge was visible. He had charisma and talent in abundance, but Carson knew charisma without respect was dangerous. It could wound, manipulate, and control those around him without leaving visible scars. Burt Reynolds was adored by millions, yet those who worked closest with him sometimes left with bruised confidence, quietly carrying memories of charm laced with cruelty. Chapter 5: Charles Bronson. Hostility without words. Charles Bronson was the opposite of Berle and Reynolds. Where others sought attention, he wanted none of it. His interviews on The Tonight Show were legendary for their icy coldness. One-word answers, extended silences, a gaze so piercing it could silence a room. Crew members whispered about the difficulty of speaking to him without eliciting a gruff or hostile response. Johnny Carson, who had hosted countless difficult guests, found Bronson mentally exhausting. The actor did not play the game of television charm. Timing, humor, connection, none of it mattered to him. To Bronson, the stage was a place to assert dominance, not to entertain. He appeared to derive quiet satisfaction from the discomfort he caused, enjoying the subtle power that came from his intimidating presence. What made Bronson even more unsettling was the unpredictability of his presence. One night, the cameras rolled smoothly, the audience laughing at the usual banter, and then Bronson would offer a single word or a cold stare that instantly froze the energy in the studio. Crew members and co-stars learned quickly that even the slightest misstep could earn disapproving silence or a sharp glance, leaving them second-guessing every action. Carson often mused that Bronson's power didn't come from words or aggression. It came from an aura of untouchable authority, a magnetic intensity that demanded attention without ever asking for it. In that silence, respect was demanded, fear was cultivated, and everyone in the room understood that Bronson was a man who played by his own rules. Behind the silence was a lesson about Hollywood's darker side. Success and fame could grant immense influence, but without empathy, that influence became isolating. Bronson didn't hate Carson personally. He simply operated on his own terms, indifferent to audience expectation, disregarding the delicate balance of performance and respect. His hostility wasn't petty. It was an expression of control, a subtle but persistent warning that he was a man not to be manipulated. Johnny reflected on these interviews years later and realized Bronson was a rare kind of guest, brilliant, powerful, and frightening in the restraint he imposed. In a world of performers desperate to charm, Bronson reminded Carson that power without warmth can be far more terrifying than outright cruelty. Chapter 6: Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was terrifying, but not in the way most would assume. He wasn't brash, rude, or aggressive in the traditional sense. No, his danger lay in the subtlety of his control. He wielded morality as a weapon, cloaking judgment and critique in charm. On the surface, he smiled, joked, and appeared affable. But Johnny Carson, trained to read people after decades of observing Hollywood, immediately sensed a tension under the grin. Cosby's lectures weren't casual, they were deliberate. Staff members, young actors, assistants, and even seasoned crew were subtly assessed, critiqued, and corrected in real time. No decision was safe from his moral scrutiny. He positioned himself as a moral authority, creating a sense of unease masked as guidance. Those closest to him understood, even without words, that disagreement could trigger consequences. One infamous moment remained etched in Carson's memory. A minor mishap, a prop dropped during a live taping, was seized upon by Cosby to publicly humiliate a staffer. Carson intervened, attempting to protect the employee, only to meet a glare filled with controlled hostility. Every gesture, every glance was calculated. Years later, as the darker truths of Cosby's private life came to light, Carson's instincts were vindicated. Cosby exemplified a chilling reality. The most dangerous people are often those who appear kind, saintly, or benevolent. The rehearsed smile masks control, the charm conceals manipulation, and the studio lights illuminate a persona designed to disarm suspicion. Behind the public face was a calculated predator, a man who understood influence and used it quietly, efficiently, and devastatingly. Johnny Carson knew fame inside and out. He understood the charm, the glamour, the laughter, but he also understood the darkness lurking beneath the surface. Hollywood rewarded talent, certainly, but rarely did it reward character. The men he hosted were legends, charismatic, brilliant, unforgettable, but many carried shadows behind their smiles. Carson never publicly exposed them. He didn't need to. He watched, remembered, and learned. For those who worked with him, the stories he told in private were warnings, lessons in recognizing charm versus manipulation, talent versus cruelty. And now, through this lens, we see what Carson always did. Fame can be dazzling, but it can also conceal true danger. These guests were iconic, influential, and sometimes absolute nightmares. And for Johnny Carson, surviving and thriving amid them required not just humor, but insight, intuition, and an unshakable awareness of human nature.